I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and a king of England too. Elizabethan era was a glorious era, or also known as the Golden Age. But in addition to progress in a political aspect, there was still social class inequality. So, to understand why that inequality happened, we will explain it in this video. Elizabeth I was born on September 7, 1533. She was born at Greenwich Palace. She was a daughter of Tudor King Henry VIII and his second wife, Anne Boleyn. Elizabeth was crowned in 1558 when she was 25 years old. She was the first Queen of England monarch, and she also known as the Virgin Queen because she never married. During her reign, the Elizabethan government operated on a monarchy system, privy council, and parliament. Queen Elizabeth believed that God has appointed the monarch and she had the power and status to grant jobs to those below her. The court was the center of political power in Elizabethan era, and the wealthy people went to the court to try and win the favor of the queen. Elizabeth used the Privy Council and Parliament based in London to help her in governing the country. The Privy Council was the most important group of people. They act as the Queen's ministers. The agenda of what Parliament was allowed to discuss and pass law on was controlled by Elizabeth. Elizabeth was often in conflict with Parliament over issues such as religion, marriage, and her monopoly licenses. That's why Parliament became more influential. In this political aspect, there were many achievements that have done by Elizabeth at the time. The first one is economic prosperity. Elizabeth I inherited an almost bankrupt country when she ascended to the throne of England. Then she implemented 30 rules to restore financial accountability. And the second one is stable and functioning government. Helped by the reforms initiated by Henry VII and Henry VIII, Elizabeth's government was strong, centralized, and effective, guided by her Privy Council. The third one is religious tolerance. Queen Elizabeth I wanted to build a stable, peaceful nation with a strong government, free from the influence of nation power in matters of the church and the state. The fourth one is exploration. Advancement in a practical skill of navigation enabled to explorers to thrive during the Elizabethan era, which also opened up profitable global trade routes. And the last is, her biggest achievement was succeed to defeat the Spanish Armada and making her respected by the other nations. But among the many achievements in political aspect, Elizabethan era still has many classes in a social structure. Elizabethan era had 4 main classes. The first one is the nobility. A nobleman was rich and powerful. During the reign of Elizabeth, as well as the reign of Henry VIII and Henry VII, they viewed the noble class as a threat to their power and liked to keep them into few members. The second one is the gentry. The gentry were knights, squires, wealthy gentlemen, and gentlewomen. They did not have to work with their hands for a living, and most of the important people in this period came from this class. The third one is the yeomanry. The yeomanry were the middle class. They used their wealth for more simple, unlike the gentry, who spent their wealth to build large homes. The last one is the poor. The poor were the lower class without money, food, or shelter. The poor laws were passed to assist them, but every poor man would be found guilty if he chose not to do work and could be sentenced to death. So we can see that from the social structure, there is an inequality between the political achievement where there were still social class in that period. For example, like in an Elizabethan theater audience, the Elizabethan theater audience attracted people from all classes. The upper class, the nobility, and the lower class is the commoners. But there was a difference in watching it, where the commoners would pay 1 penny to stand in a pit of the globe of theater, while the rich nobles could watch the play from a chair set on the side of the globe stage itself. So how exactly this inequality begin? It is caused by one of the Elizabethan worldview, which is the great chain of being. People believe that everyone and everything is arranged in a certain order, and its commandment is divinely pre-ordered. God is the head of all of things, and the king is his representative on earth, is the head of the states, and the pope is the head of the church. Everything is allocated a place in a big chain including animal, plants, minerals, and social class. And because the inequality that happened in a political and social aspect had been influenced the literary work in that time. And for the most famous literary work in that period are poetry and drama. So here are some examples of literary work in that period. The first one is the famous epic poem The Faerie Queene by Edmund Spenser. This poem written by Edmund Spenser is specifically to honor Queen Elizabeth's achievement in a political aspect. And the second one is drama Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. Romeo and Juliet demonstrate how two people of different family or social classes could fall in love, even though they are not supposed to fall in love. Romeo represents the commoners or lower class, and Juliet represents the nobles or upper class. This work tells us about how they were not supposed to fall in love, but they still did. The last one is drama Love's Labour's Lost by William Shakespeare. Love's Labour's Lost is a comedy about a king and his 3 companions who decide not to be involved with women for 3 years. In this literary work, the man fell in love with the princess and her ladies. After the princess dies, the man fell in love with people they should not. This falling in love is against the social convention of Elizabethan era. After all the explanation, we can conclude that Elizabethan era was the golden age, which had great achievement at the time. However, in the reality, behind this glory, there were still contradictions, which is inequality in a political and social aspect. This happened because in Elizabeth's worldview, she saw everything in order. And here are some sources that we use in this video. So that's all about the inequality between social and political aspect in Elizabethan era. We hope you've learned something from this video, and thank you for watching.